Hey dreamers, welcome to my life today. I'm going to be talking about the theme of addiction. I've been live quite a lot, and yet still struggling to find my way around, which I find annoying. Like even trying to put text on the screen, why can't you do that in advance? I mean, I'm sure you can, it just seems to change every single time. Not every time, but depending on how you get into screens, it's different. Let's see, what'll I talk about? Where'll I do? Even the stickers. I mean, what's the point in stickers with no text on them, only that when they get added to the screen, they have text on them and you can't change it? Show me before I add it, please. I'm trying to put something on screen to share what this week's theme is. This is probably fine when you are doing lives all the time. Anyway, maybe I'll just talk about the theme. Hi, Taffy. Come on. You joining me for live? So this week's theme is addiction, and I drew this from the Major Arcana deck. Come on, Toffee. It was the tarot card, the Major Arcana card, the Devil. The themes of the Devil card are addiction and negativity. Come on. You getting comfy? So I wanted to explore what the theme of addiction, what's in addiction. And we know that addiction is often related to drugs, alcohol, sex, and all the bad stuff for you. But when I was thinking about it more, I realized that all of these bad things are not necessarily bad on their own. But when they get overused, then they become problems. Because they can distract you from other things and they can cause problems with your relationships and the way that you show up in the world. But there's a lot more than just those ones. You could be addicted to exercise and people not see that that's an addiction because it may only manifest as problems for you and not other people. And you even see this with alcohol as well. This idea of people being functional alcoholics, that they're drinking all the time, but they're able to perform in the world. But that doesn't mean that it's not still an addiction. And so I've been trying to think, like, what is it about an addiction that makes it an addiction? How do you go from it just being a routine or a habit or a preference to it being an addiction? And really there's a couple of things that make something an addiction. Obviously there's the compulsion to do it, first of all. But then, what are the impacts of it as well? When it starts negatively impacting your life, in that you're doing it instead of doing something else, or you're doing it because you feel maybe a comfort that comes from it that you can't get in other places. The comfort isn't necessarily bad, but when it's causing you to drift away from healthier practices, like if you use it to decompress from work and, not face why is work challenging in the first place, then it can just become a habit that is not going to serve you in the long term because you're spending more time then avoiding problems rather than dealing with them. And there definitely is a balance to be struck. I'm not saying you can't have a drink or anything like that. The question I'm putting out there is it intentional? Are you using your time and energy the best ways that you can? And so, like, I've been thinking about what are the things that I've been addicted to, and one of my big ones is the phone, mobile games in particular. There was one game that I was playing, I think, for about 5 years, a bit every single day, and it was just, you know, it was nice to play the same thing every day and have a bit of stability. But I realized that I was using it to escape from other things, particularly work, because work was stressful in many ways. And it did get to a point where I was saying I'm spending way too much time on this because my screen time was saying I'm, doing however many hours a day. And that's so much time that I could be spending on other things, you know. So I eventually stopped with that game. And I've been looking at my habits in other mobile games as well so that I don't fall into that trap because you know, games are designed to hook your attention and keep you invested. So when it becomes a compulsion to go back onto them rather than uh, a desire for me to get something out of it, then that's when I know it's starting to slip into being addicting. Be nice and cozy, Toffee. Toffee, as you can tell, is addicted to cuddles. Now, the other side of it is what are the things that we do regularly that could be considered addictions, I suppose? Are they addictions or are they like a special interest that is really engaging and it doesn't have negative impacts on you? At least not negative impacts that you immediately recognize. So I was thinking back to my time in school. Just turning down the light a little bit. I was thinking back to my time in school and how I was kind of addicted to mathematics and studying in some ways because I was, focused on my schoolwork, getting good grades, going to college, etc. And in particular, mathematics, I just loved kind of everything about mathematics. That it was explaining the world around me. It was highly logical. It was using it for problem solving in many different areas as well. So I used to do math problems at the start of my homework so that I could like get into the homework mindset. And I even, went further than I was necessarily supposed to, studying extra option questions and things like that for my leaving cert. Just because I was curious about the topics. But all of that served me then because I went into college to study mathematics and I also did teaching students like tutoring because I enjoyed talking to people through mathematics and seeing how we could understand things differently. And then also just, helping students with questions because we had tutors in college explaining the things that lecturers couldn't cover in the lectures because they were going through theory and we wanted to see practical examples. And so I wanted to do that as well for my class or a class of students, and I did. And I also taught students privately for their Leaving Cert as well. And I was thinking about that lately. It's been a long time since I did either of those things, but I was asking myself, like, surely I can do some of that again now. You know, trying to understand what's the current landscape with mathematics education. Is there something I can do as well to bring in my expertise through my degrees? And while I don't have teaching degrees, I have mathematics and problem solving degrees. And, you know, the teachers are there. If we're talking about schools, the teachers are there with their teaching degrees. But I would be offering a slightly different perspective. And I'm curious to see what that could potentially blossom into. And what has it got to do with addiction and negativity? Well, my addiction is, I guess, problem solving and mathematics and trying to solve things, trying to find solutions to things. And where that can become negative is when you kind of push too hard to solve problems. Because, like, I don't know what the teaching landscape is at the moment. Oh, are you off, Toffee? I don't know what the teaching landscape is at the moment. And I'm curious to understand it a bit more and see what possibilities are there. Because when I was in school, we had student teachers who, like, supplemented our classwork. And so I was thinking that, like, schools will have some bit of autonomy in terms of how they might do things. So there might be possibilities there that I'm open to exploring if I just start with some conversations. And that's just one thing. Because I mentioned that I was addicted to video games, particularly mobile games, I have been trying to understand my relationship to video games, and there is a storytelling element that I like in video games because they're structured and, you know, everyone's getting the same experience playing through a story, but people will change their experiences depending on the mechanics of the game. So I wanted to stream video games, and I've been doing that with Borderlands 4 and talking about my weekly themes, how it shows up in video games, and just being more intentional about playing. Because I'm still playing the game, right? I'm just focusing it on a particular time during the week. And so I'm mindful that if it starts to maybe go outside that window or I want to do it more than what I've specified, just being cognizant of, is there any part of this that has become addictive? And that's what I've been toying with over the last couple of months with social media as well, because I've noticed my relationship has changed to it. I'm producing a lot more than I consume. Whereas before, I was consuming a lot and not producing anything. Whereas now I'll do my own videos, I'll interact with other videos, I'll repost things, message people, leave comments and other stuff. And it's far more beneficial because now I get an FYP that is based on my interests, and I find it a lot more stimulating. And so it's kind of, we'll say, addictive in a different way, because I've been doing videos every day. I posted a video every single day since June 2nd of this year. So on one hand, you know, you can ask the question like, are you not addicted to social media if you've been posting for June, July, August, September, October, 5 months straight. And there's an argument for that. I would say that because of the amount of time that I put into it each day is only a couple of minutes for making a video, somewhere between maybe 5 and 10 minutes, that it's actually productive for me because I'm using that time to further my other projects like Kiki's Big Dream Experiment. And, even this live is a project of sorts as well. It's one of my content pieces during my week. Because I just want to talk about topics and interact with people who want to share their opinions as well. So feel free to ask me questions as I go. Let me know what your thoughts are about the topic of addiction. I've been using tarot cards for self-reflection because at the end of the day, it's a deck of cards, right? So what you draw is chance, really. But I think that out of the 78 cards, I do a daily tarot reading. So I will write down what I'm grateful for from yesterday, what I'm planning to do today, and what I'm dreaming about for tomorrow. And I'll ask myself a question to thread them together. Is there something I can take from yesterday to help me with today so that I can position myself for a good tomorrow? That's basically the idea. And then I'll shuffle the deck, draw a card, and look at what the theme is from that card and see how I can relate it to my question. Sometimes it's easy and straightforward, other times it's not. And the times when it's not straightforward, it takes a bit longer to reflect on what I can do. Because at the end of the day, I'm answering my own question because I'm just reflecting on a different perspective and answering a question for myself and then taking that forward with the rest of my day. And so that's a building block for my day, my productivity, my intentions, and even my content as well. I get ideas that flow into my content. And it's addictive in the sense that it is something I do every day. It's something I make sure to do as well. I take time out to do it. And I suppose it's a compulsion kind of at this point because when I haven't done it, it's on my mind to do it. I got cat hairs from rubbing toffee. But it doesn't hit the other hallmarks of addiction in that I'm not doing it to get away from doing something else. I'm not spending hours at it. I don't feel like the world ends because I don't do it. Well, maybe a little bit because, some days if I leave it late, then I get a bit anxious that I haven't done it yet. But that's like my own deadline, I suppose, and it's a commitment I've made to myself. My nose is very itchy. So yeah, it depends on your perspective. And if there's parts of it that are detrimental that people point out, then certainly feedback I would take on board for sure. But I don't think people really pay attention because it doesn't end up affecting them. It doesn't make me late for things. It doesn't hold me back from doing other things throughout my day, showing up working, showing up in my personal life. And that there are some of the questions that I've been asking, where do you draw the line between something being an addiction and not? And I was looking this up online to see what are the kind of hallmarks of an addiction. And all of the language is very rooted in the effect that you have on other people, you know, that you become lax with your responsibilities, that you appear maybe uncaring and whatnot because you're dedicating your time to something else and not to the people around you in a way that you would have shown up before. Maybe it has an impact on your money or your time or energy as well. And that can impact other areas like work or your personal life or social life. And all of the effects are, ways that other people are affected by your addiction. But I don't think there's enough discussion about the personal effects of it. Because we get addicted to things because we find comfort in them. There is some reward system in there as well. And I don't think we spend enough time trying to understand that about people. And that makes it difficult to combat addiction. Because when you're doing it because it makes you feel good and you don't really understand the underlying reasons for it, it can make it very hard for you to change that or swap one habit with another. And I think those are the conversations we should be having with people. I think there's a lot of othering that we do with our language. What I mean by that is that we put labels on things and then that label comes with stigma. The one that I notice in Ireland a lot is around going to therapy and mental health services. That people tend to have this impression that if you're going to therapy or using mental health services, that there's something broken about you, that you can't deal with things. And that is something to be ashamed of. You don't talk about these things. But I think everybody should do therapy at some point to try and understand themselves a lot more, because I think we live so much in the external world. We don't spend enough time with ourselves. I know so many people who don't like being on their own because they find it boring in some way or they feel like they're missing out on something. And I think it's important that we do spend time on our own, because being on our own is where we can be most authentically ourselves. And we can really try and understand what is it that drives us, what motivates us, what do we think about, what are our fears, our dreams, ideas. What are the things that we think about that we're not sure about? We're not sure how other people will receive them. So I don't think we do spend enough time on our own to do that. And in terms of othering people with language, the thing about it is that everyone has their own interpretation of language as well. I just said there that I think everyone should do therapy because it's a good and useful mirroring to your own life. There's a lot of benefits you can get from doing it as well that can depend on what your goals are. But there is a lot of stigma around the word therapy because it comes with these questions of like, oh, what are you not able to deal with that you need someone's help with? Hey, Sir Roger. What would be okay with me? Sorry, I only see two comments from you. One says you to chat, and then your message there about a decent man looking for advice. Could you share more of what you're asking there? Oh, okay, an uncle looking to join me. Yeah, if he wants to get in touch, send him my way. Sounds good. I can definitely have a chat. In terms of the perceptions that I was talking about, and therapy, the people that I've spoken with who do have this impression that therapy means that there's something wrong and that you're not happy and everything. I mean, there are times when, an individual is not happy. There's times when the person is happy. I think we can get too stuck on mood as I don't know. We have moments when we're happy, moments when we're sad. Our mood over time, I guess, is a general indicator of how life is going. But I think that, you can be a generally happy person and still go to, hey there, Denny. Thanks, Roger. Enjoy the cans, Tom. Do you have some questions you want to ask Denny? In this week's live, I've been talking about the topic of addiction, but it can show up in lots of different ways. The perceptions chat I'm having at the moment about therapy is that people have preconceived notions about it. Hello?
How are you going, Kiki?
Hello, can
Can
you hear
you
me?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you today?
I'm not too bad. I'm in a bit of a predicament here now.
Mhm.
The young lad is after telling me that he's bi,
Okay. What age, can I ask?
22.
Okay.
Now, as you might be able to tell from myself, I'm an older generation,
Hmm.
and I don't know what way to broach the subject with him. It's not that I'm not. Well, I suppose I'm not comfortable, but I wouldn't know of any people that are bi.
Hmm.
That's no disrespect to yourself or anything, but I don't know. Would you be able to give me a bit of advice on what way to go about it?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately try and let your son, you said, was it?
My son,
Yeah. I would say maybe let him guide the way a little bit. If you approach it with curiosity, that is always a good start. I suppose maybe try to listen to what part of his story that he's willing to share. I don't know how much he's shared with you already, but
I'll just give you a bit of for background there, so he's in college at the moment,
Yeah.
and he came home, must be 3 weeks ago, I'd say maybe 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Dad, I have something to tell you." And I said, "No, butter, sure, what is it, sure?" And he said, "No, we need to have a chat." And he said, "Dad, I'm bi." And there was complete silence in the room because I wasn't expecting it at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do, what to say. In the end, he just got up, stormed out. And to be honest with you, he went back to college then, and I haven't seen him since, but he's due home now this weekend. And look, he sent me a message and he said he understands where I'm coming from and he's willing to talk to me, but the problem is I don't know what to say to him.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that can be difficult, especially if he had stormed off after the last conversation. Um, I suppose from your perspective, if you're open and honest about it and say, that you're willing to learn more about it because you don't, it's not something you know an awful lot about, um, which is fair, then that just opens up the conversation. And what I would say is maybe ask him for some patience that, I can hear that you want to approach this with love and kindness. And sometimes the words that we use might not be the right ones and they can come across maybe not the right way, but I can see that your intention is to find that connection. Um, so I think it might be important to just say that to him that if you can't find the right words of saying something, that you are being curious and helpful, and that if you are saying something that's not right, let him kind of share his perspective on it as well. Um, because it is a new area of discussion, you're both going to have to find a language to talk about it in.
Exactly, and I appreciate your advice on the matter. I suppose, I suppose I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing, if you get me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you want to, you can by all means ask me some questions here, and I can maybe share some answers to give you information that would be helpful. Um,
well,
what do you think?
by by he means that he's into the women and the men, isn't it? I'm not
Yeah,
being funny or anything, but it's just
no,
a
that is
simple
right.
question.
And I suppose the thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes people can sometimes go down the lane of like, what's the ratio of one to the other, and it doesn't really work like that. I suppose there's a I suppose there's different kinds of attraction to different people. So it can be very clear cut with some people and not so clear cut with others. Um, and I suppose that's where he would have to maybe share his own perspective of it. Um, I suppose in that vein, some of the things to be mindful of are language, and that's going to be a difficult one to get used to. So rather than saying necessarily boyfriend or girlfriend, being gender neutral and using the word partner or
And
something like that.
another thing, I'm sorry, I, I just want to ask you a few more questions.
Go ahead.
You're saying gender neutral and all that. He, he said he's bi. Does that mean where does he fall in regards to binary, non-binary, or is that a different kettle of fish altogether?
Yeah, so Bi and bisexuality is has to do with your attraction to other people. Um, Non-binary is a gender expression. So, you know, if someone is a man or a woman, um, we kind of know what those gender expressions are. But then people who are non-binary are in the middle, or it depends on their personal expression. Some people would say they're in between, some people would say they're neither, and they embody maybe aspects of both. But the difference is that bisexual is who you're attracted to, and non binary is a form of gender expression, how you show up in the world. Um, So yeah, they're slightly different, but I understand that there's some of the language sounds a bit similar.
I was just trying to get my head around it. I'd done a little bit of research
Yeah.
online, but now I wouldn't really know what I'd be looking at. But him being bi now, would he be gender neutral, do you think? Or
Not necessarily. It would be different from his own gender expression. So from like the fact that you're saying he, I presume that he still identifies as a man.
well,
Um,
don't get me wrong now.
okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying I didn't mean anything by that, but he's my son,
Yeah.
and growing up and up to 2 or 3 weeks ago, I he was a man to me, or a boy, or whatever you want. Do you know? So like I don't know if he still sees himself as a man.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's a question I'll have to ask him in time, I suppose.
Yeah. I suppose what you can do is you can ask him to explain it in his language. You know, what um how does he see it for himself? And that can be helpful to sort of craft the image for you as well, because I know there's so much language out there. It can be difficult to kind of pinpoint the useful labels. Labels are great for giving you a direction of where to look, but don't get too hung up on them so much that you forget that, you know, he's a person as well. Um,
I get you. I don't want to come across as sounding anyway selfish or anything, but I always longed for grandchildren.
yeah.
Be, being bi,
Mhm.
is that all gone out the window now, or do you still think there could be a chance of that? Or what way would you think?
So honestly, it will come down to your son's personal preference. It doesn't necessarily mean it's gone out the window because, you know, it's a possibility he marries a woman and they have kids. There's a possibility he
That's what
has a
I'm hoping
relationship with
for.
a man and they still have kids through various ways. So they're not like being bi doesn't stop grandchildren being on the table, but his personal preferences then would potentially have an impact, whatever they might be. You know, um, when I was growing up, I always wanted to have kids, and I would like to have kids at some point. You know, I'm still only in my early 30s, so I still have time.
I appreciate your bit of advice. It's more than a bit of advice. I really appreciate it. Now, Roger put me in touch with you there. I don't know what way you are what's your circumstances there yourself? Are you by or
Hmm. Yeah, so
want
I
me to say it
identify
correctly?
as bi. I've been in a relationship with a man for 14 years, and so it's been a tricky
So
thing
you're the
even
right
from,
man to ask.
sorry.
You're the right lad to ask.
Yeah. Um, I've been in a long-term relationship with a man, so I've gone through all of the questions myself of like, what does it mean to identify as bi, even though I'm in a relationship with one person? Um, and I've done a lot of advocacy as well in the workplace and with charities in the LGBT space. So
Very good.
I've got a lot of experience of kind of seeing different people's situations as well and the importance of language, but also the sometimes we can get stuck in language as well. And that's why it's important to take what words he's using and reflect those back as well. Because there are different words for people attracted to multiple genders. Bi is probably the most well known, um, but then there's other
Is it
words.
okay? Is it okay to call him by?
If that's the language that he has used to come out to you with, then yes, yeah, absolutely,
He was explaining it to me, but I don't know whether he was trying to
yeah.
put it in simple terms or. Look, it's a question I'm going to have to ask him myself, obviously, but
Mhm.
I just don't. I don't want to upset him, you know. And you've gone through it yourself. And is there
I suppose
anything that I should
one thing to keep in
watch out
mind
for?
is that, you know, you only started this journey 3 weeks ago, whereas he's probably been on this journey for
Oh God, only knows how
years,
long.
who knows?
Yeah.
Um, and so there will be, I suppose, for him, a learning curve of this is a new situation that you're coming into. Um, so I suppose there's a bit of patience that will be expected from his side, but I can see that the way you're approaching it with um, sensitivity and everything, that you want to make sure you're showing up the right way. So just be honest about that, that you are still learning as well, and that you'll probably make mistakes, but you're always willing to correct them and not to feel too hard done by that you don't get it straight away because it is a lot of information and it is very new as well.
I get you, and I appreciate the comments. Look, as I said, I was put onto you there by Roger, but I'm going to follow you. I It would be okay if I message you maybe if I have a question for you. Or
Yeah,
what way are you
absolutely.
feeling?
You can drop me messages. We can chat away and with text. That's no problem.
Well, thank you very much for your kind your help, and I'll talk to you again soon. And more power to you.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a good day, Denny. Thanks for getting in touch.
Take care. Thank you, Kiki. Bye bye.
Oh, great. Thanks, Roger. Thanks, Denny. How do I change my screen back? Just give me a minute. How do I get my boards back? Hmm. is it with this? Why can't I change the view? Um, hmm. This is annoying. Thanks, Denny. Just saw your message there. Okay, I'm gonna have a quick Google of this because it's bothering me that I can't change the view. Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna try and figure this out and also try and talk about addiction. You know, actually, following that conversation, I was talking earlier about mathematics being something that I was addicted to, and that there's a lot of good that came from that, and you know, all good. But working in the LGBT space as well is something that I was really passionate about. Um, and so I spent a lot of years working for advocacy, allyship, and charities as well in the space. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like this at the moment. Because the only answer here it says is to end the live and restart, and I don't want to do that. Hey there, Marius. Oh, your request just disappeared. Do you want to try that again? If you're still there, Marius, if you want to send an invite again, I can chat to you. Uh, so yeah, in the LGBT space, I've been very interested in advocacy, and yeah, I don't think it got to a point where. Oh, there we go. Hi there.
Cześć,
Hi, can you hear
hello.
me?
Cześć, I'm Mariusz. Much thank you helping join. Yeah?
How are you today?
Not too bad. You okay too? Also, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I listened to Mr. Dini and I think of self. Yeah.
yeah.
When I was a teenager, I like a woman, yeah,
Hmm.
and I grow up and I all like woman, yeah,
Yeah,
and now I marry woman.
yeah,
Last 15 years, yeah,
yeah,
and now I 45 and I meet man, yes,
hmm,
serious now.
yeah,
I meet man and growing relationship and much friend and I have more a relationship. Yeah,
hmm,
I loving, yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
With man, yeah? You understand. I know speak here in case somebody children or something listen.
yeah,
But you understand, I love make, yeah?
yes, yeah.
But now I still with my wife. She
Hmm.
know this,
Okay.
but I still love wife.
Yeah.
I can come again. I need to take a phone call.
Okay. That's fine if you want to do that and come back afterwards. That's okay. So I was saying I've done a lot of work in the LGBT advocacy space, and I suppose in some ways there's a somewhat hallmarks of addiction potentially, getting really interested in a subject and spending a lot of time on it. Uh, but my interest in it is partly understanding myself and partly trying to understand, I suppose, the landscape of people in that community as well, of which I'm part of. And one thing that I found interesting was the ways that people who want to do something and make a change can use their skills and talents to enact those changes. So in the workplace, we had a group of volunteers who worked in various different departments of the company, but we all met to discuss the LGBT community and how that affects the workplace and showing up authentically and so on. And we used to organize events, we used to organize Pride, and um, yeah, I suppose there was this addictive quality to it of like really trying to do more. And I suppose the workplace saw it a little bit as extra because it was impacting the time that we would spend on our work. Anyway, I'll chat about that a little more after the conversation. Hi again.
Dziękuję. I have a phone call, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my I speak about man, yeah, and
Mhm.
I explain I love make man, and now I still with my wife, and she know this, and I
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
love make wife, and but now I know I buy
Yeah.
buy yeah buy now 40 years I
Mhm.
living loving woman, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know man as well.
Mhm. Okay.
I know speak to nobody. I ask you, can I be normal to say, you think I say my wife, I buy, or no?
I suppose this comes down to what you want. Where would you like to go in the future? And you know your wife the best. Um, I suppose the thing to keep in mind is if you share this with her, then that's going to be a new conversation you both will have to have about what it means for your relationship. And I suppose I would say there's your responsibility to uphold the commitment that you've made with her as a person. Um, and that goes both ways, I suppose.
I much thanks. I still I loving my wife. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love make a wife normal. Yeah, and happy.
Yeah.
But I love make man. Yes,
Okay.
and I like also love make man.
Yeah.
But I stop and now love make man.
Hmm.
You think normal or no normal? I maybe go together or no?
So I think the word normal kind of starts to separate people. Um, your motivations for stopping are what's important, right? You know,
Because of my wife.
yeah, of course. But what I'm trying to get to the bottom of there is that, you're questioning the relationship you have with your wife as well and trying to maintain that. And I suppose this is where you have to make a decision of what you want for the future. Um, if you want to have a if you want to continue to have a good relationship with your wife, your question is, is this something you want to share with her? Um, so that you can be open and honest about yourself. And
I uh, I think maybe if I tell my wife, I tell my wife I end in a graveyard. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
I know what you mean.
serious, serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, you don't have to do this alone either. You can also talk to a professional who can guide you as well. I earlier on in the live I was talking about um, therapy, and I've gone to therapy. I know lots of people who have gone to therapy, and I know there's this stigmas around it, but it is a safe space to talk about difficult things like this with a professional. At the end of the day, I'm only a person on TikTok. So when it gets to complicated things like, you know, someone else's marriage, I'm not a marriage counselor. And uh, I suppose my advice can only go so far. So that is definitely
I
an avenue you
understand.
could look at because you can still have that confidential expression with someone who can give you really practical advice on your relationship with your wife.
You think I want my wife uh, and maybe sometime man also, yeah? You think I can together this, or you think maybe if this decision is
Mhm.
for my wife?
So you'll have your own preferences, we'll say, in terms of if you want to maintain your marriage to your wife, but also meet up with men as well, that is valid for you to have. As for what your wife wants, that is a different conversation. And so if there's a disconnect there, then you'll have communication to talk about. Um, Definitely, as you say, if you tell her and you feel like right now that it wouldn't be received well, then that's a consequence you would potentially have to deal with, you know? Um, there's definitely a world out there where you can have both, right? But it might not
You think maybe
necessarily be
I
great for your wife if she doesn't reciprocate that feeling.
you think maybe I afraid, yeah, tell
Yeah,
my wife.
yeah, I understand
And
that. Yeah.
I think maybe just I living a long time, yeah, with my wife, and I happy. I still happy, and I think I don't. I think maybe I use a gigolo, yeah, maybe
Mhm.
or
So
no.
what I would say is that you have to be mindful of trust, communication, and also sexual health as well. Um, that is, those are things that are really important because if you are doing things behind her back, then that doesn't foster
Maybe
trust.
only
And
one or two time 1 year. No, every day or week, little.
I
I
know,
don't
but
know.
yeah, but it still is like imagine it that 5 years down the road, she finds out some way, because things happen in life and people find out things that they're not supposed to find out. You're then faced with the situation of you're then faced with a situation that is more difficult to try and justify on your side, because you're going to try and justify it and say, well, I didn't want to hurt you and all of these things. But from her perspective, if it's 5 years down the road and there's all this stuff going on in the background that she's not familiar with, then that's going to cause more aggression and definitely would potentially lead to a breakup. And that's what you have to keep in mind. You know, secrets don't stay buried all of the time, especially when you're repeating them.
I understand. I, if you have swingers for
Yeah.
buy, no?
Yeah, it depends on the couple. Um, but yeah, there's definitely bi swingers for sure. That is an avenue you can express for sure because I suppose when you bring up being bi and wanting to be with men outside of your marriage, there's also going to be the question of what does your wife feel about that? But then what does she feel about herself having other partners? And so you could always bring it up as a question of um, exploring an open relationship, see what her thoughts are there, and bringing the topic up that way. Because that is a way that you could still maintain your marriage and have maybe a different agreement in place when it comes to sex.
I a few times think about this, and you know, I think about my wife, and we happy, and a little thing in head, yeah.
Yeah,
Think about swinging, yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I have to speak to my wife, and
Mhm.
big problem. Maybe I leave no before Christmas because Christmas, then maybe no Christmas, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Uh, it's difficult to have these conversations. Um, it's hard to know sometimes where to start, but I think your point about swingers could be a good place where you can talk about a topic without necessarily agreeing to things, just to see where she stands and where you stand. And that can be a useful gauge for the future. Now, the other part of it is, like I mentioned, there's therapy, of course. There's also, like, you can do um, counseling, couples counseling that's focused on sex, for example. There's lots of different options out there. The question is, what are some of the things that you would both be open to talking about right now? Because you have to meet her where she is as well.
Yes, I understand. And I much thanks you speak with me, and I go now, and maybe again, if you are here, I can come and speak and talk more, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for reaching out.
Much. Thank you. Cześć. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye now. Hey, Emma, how are you? Cheers. Thank you. So I'm going to be finishing up shortly. I've had a lot of ideas about this week's theme. Um, I've had this is my sixth week of doing Kiki's Big Dream Experiment, and every week I've done a different theme. And what I'm noticing is that the themes they kind of stick around a little bit. Um, I've got takeaways. At the end of the week on Sundays, I write a blog that reflects on the content I've done during the week, including this. And I talk about like what are some of the lessons I've learned. And I use those lessons, I carry those forward with me into following weeks. I've been trying to be a bit more intentional about looking for lessons during the week because I found that when I was looking at last week's theme of unexpected upheaval and I got to writing my blog, that I struggled a little bit with what lessons I was learning. In the early weeks, there was a lot of lessons because I was new to the process. But then as I got a bit deeper and some of the lessons became less general, it was harder to find them. But I still commit to identifying 5 of them at the end of the week. And so now that I'm in week 6 and noticing it being a bit more difficult, I want to try and find the lessons as I go, and keep that in mind. In terms of me being an influencer, I don't know. I guess it depends if I influence. At the moment, like what I'm doing with Kiki Dreams Big is I'm just trying out different things to see which things I enjoy doing and how I connect with people, how I create content in some way, whether it's video, audio, writing, uh, creating poetry, playing video games, lots of different things. And I'm trying them out as experiments for myself. So, on one hand, I suppose you could say I'm an influencer because people who interact with my content will be influenced in some way. But, in lots of other ways, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an influencer because I don't maybe do the typical things that influencers do of using hooks and following trends. That's not really my style. I'm just doing things the way that I want to do them. Uh, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm influencing myself, actually. That's the main thing. I'm doing this all for myself and I'm building my own structures because I want to explore the themes in more detail and see how they show up in my life and what's my relationship to them. And it's a form of journaling, really, and self-reflection. And that's the main reason I do this. Because I spent 10 years working in professional services and I got to a point where I was asking, like, I want to do a bit more. I have all of these skills and I've kind of hit plateaus with them from where I was, and I want to see what else can I do with them? What other new skills can I pick up? And so I wanted to have a bit of a change, and that's why, I was looking at I've got another 30 years of work ahead of me. I want it to be interesting work, and I wanted to encompass different areas as well. And yeah, I suppose over the last couple of weeks, it has kind of become an addiction. And some days, it's difficult because I'm trying too hard to build something. And that's when I need to take a step back and realize, okay, well, what's my end goal here? If I spend 5 hours building a tool, is that helping me or is it just distracting me? And that is what I think is useful for this week's theme, is to explore where that boundary comes in. Because there's lots of things we can be addicted to, and they might not be outwardly negative, but they can have a negative effect on our lives and the way we show up. Like I mentioned earlier with video games, if I was spending 3 hours doing mobile games, that's 3 hours in my day I'm not doing something else that could be productive. And so one of my takeaways for the week is about being mindful of the impact of what I do, that I'm being intentional with my time. And I want to talk about these things so that, I'm sharing lessons with other people as well. And I want to hear what their experiences are too. So yeah, that's a lot of what I've got to say for today. So I guess I'll finish up. Thanks for joining me this week. Yeah, Tom, that's absolutely one option. It's difficult when people are asking questions like this because it really depends on the individual. You know, there should be some in between point that you can bring up to start the conversation in some way. And you kind of need to know your own situation to be able to find what that initial thread is. And that's the tough thing about giving advice sometimes is you can't just trust that one piece. And that's the tough thing about giving advice sometimes is you can't just trust that one piece of. And that's the tough thing about giving advice sometimes is you can't just trust that one piece of advice will work for everybody. And I don't believe in telling people what to do because you know people tell me what to do and I don't always agree with it. So I'll take some information from it as advice and use it in a way. But at the end of the day, whatever decisions I make, I have to be happy with. And I also want the people that are affected by those decisions to be happy as well, you know. And it's tough. Especially like as we learn more about ourselves as we get older and things change around the worldview, it can be difficult. Especially then when one person is on a journey for an amount of time before the other person they want involved joins them, because you're meeting two different people are at two different stages of the same journey, and it can be difficult to bridge that gap sometimes. The only way through it is small actions, experiments, whatever you want to call them. I call them experiments because you can learn from them, and you're setting an intention that you're doing something with, a clear moral purpose to it. And it's that moral compass that will guide you in one direction over the other. And I think that the difficulty with addiction as a theme is that we can become addicted to the things that are comfortable, that are easy, that make life a bit easier. But it becomes a detriment when it has negative impacts on somebody else, especially if there's secrecy involved, because people don't like being lied to or felt like they have been lied to. And being lied to by omission is also bad because there's an intentional holding back there. And that's the difficulty with addiction, because it might start off as harmless, but then the more you do it, it's building up a rap sheet basically against you. It's one thing to make a mistake, it's another to repeat it. And now, what constitutes a mistake? That's another question. But the important thing is to keep in mind what people's perspectives are. You know, a good trick is to imagine yourself in the other person's shoes and you found, they're doing the things that you're logically justifying. How would you feel about them? Would you feel open and curious about understanding their perspective, or would you feel betrayed in some way? And that's what you're balancing up. And if you would feel betrayed, then that can be difficult because it can hold you back from acting at all out of fear. But then that fear has other impacts on your life. You become more secretive in other ways, you're trying to hide things, and that's when it starts to negatively impact you when you're addicted to the comfort versus the fear of rejection. I suppose the fear of rejection is stopping you from making changes, but the comfort you get from it is trying to maintain a safety. And it is really difficult. And I do think that therapy is worth a go because it gives you a space where you can talk about these difficult things with a professional who understands human behavior. Because it's really difficult to go through all of these things on our own. You can talk to friends, you can talk to family. Sometimes things get too complicated for friends and family. Social groups and anonymous groups are great as well to hear other stories. Watching TikTok lives and videos online are good ways as well. But don't dismiss the other structures like therapy and counseling and support groups because they're there for a reason. You're not the only one going through something difficult. It might be difficult to find the right people to talk to, but they are there. So, yeah, ending on a hopeful note. Okay, I'm going to finish up there. Thanks for joining me this week, and I'll be back next week, hopefully on Tuesday, unless things change. But I will be scheduling my live on Monday next week once I get my theme for next week. And yeah, go from there. Thanks for watching and keep dreaming.